rvsd.org, and comments will be read from each member of the public. During this period of the modified Brown Act requirements, Ross Valley Sanitary District will use best efforts to swiftly resolve requests for reasonable modifications or accommodations with individuals with disabilities consistent with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and resolving any doubt whatsoever in favor of accessibility. Welcome. The RVSD Board of Directors welcomes members of the public at its meetings and encourages citizen participation and input. The board takes seriously its responsibility to be a model of civility and to safeguard the public ability to directly address the board by providing the appropriate board meeting decorum in accordance with resolution number 10-1378, which is posted at every board meeting. Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Gaffney.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Meggs. Director Meggs, I believe you're on mute. Sorry.
Here.
Thank you. Scylla.
Here.
Borstein.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. And we got a flag there with Mr. Kelly. So I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Flag of the United States of America.
For which it stands one nation.
One nation. Under God.
With liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item 2, approval of agenda.
Michael, can I
Yes.
ask a question? We have another person in our picture here. You want to introduce that person? Our team? And then Doug's in here twice.
Yeah, no, Doug is in there with video for him, but he's on phone for audio.
Okay.
I think Doug is caller 1. And
Oh.
he's giving
I'm up there, Doug Kelly. No, top left of your screen.
And can you introduce Yunlin Zhu?
Steve did already, but go ahead, Steve, one more time.
Sorry, I didn't. It was before the meeting though, right?
Steve, why don't you introduce Mr.
Oh,
Zhu?
Sure. Yeah. He's part of he's a consultant as part of one of the agenda items. So just letting you know, that's for agenda item number 10. He's with Inland Zoo's with Shu. Inland Shu is with Harrison Associates. I invited him to attend the meeting today and answer any questions when we get to that board meeting item.
Oh, the specs.
And I suspect caller 1 is probably Felicia, who has had some difficulty with her sound through the video on her screen. So yes. Okay. Item 2, approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
One thing I'd like to note for the board.
Go ahead,
Did we
Steve.
move 10?
I actually emailed, or Julia emailed you earlier today of a proposed letter to send as requested by California Special Districts Association as part of the budget state budget process. So in the interest of time and because of the timing of the board meeting, I requested to include this as part of the agenda today.
Yeah,
Michael?
it came in yesterday to general manager, and he alerted me to this fact, and they were very clear that it was very time critical, but we both decided that as the meeting was, it just happenstance that it was tonight, I said, let's just bring it up tonight and have everybody have a look at it. So that's why it's the last minute, and it's pretty straightforward. But when shall we review that, Steve? What number?
Can we do that, Andrea?
It's an
Yeah, you can add, there's a couple of circumstances under which you can add an agenda item. And one of them is when something arises after the agenda is posted and there's a need for immediate action, and 2/3 of the board support adding it to the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So
they taking a vote tonight?
Sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was just.
I mean, the fact is that by our procedure that we have laid out, that we all approved, Steve and I could have sent it yesterday. But because of the proximity of tonight's meeting, we thought it would be appropriate to let everybody just have a look at it and discuss it. So,
Michael?
yeah,
Michael, I'd move that we put that agenda item after 12, and that we vote on that as part of approving the agenda. And I'd ask we move number 10 up to accommodate our guest.
I'll second.
okay, we have a second. Julia? Roll call.
Yes, thank you. So where will number 10 go if we're moving it up? Where would we like it next?
How about right before number 8?
Okay,
Is that okay, Doug?
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Meggs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Anyone wishing to address the board of directors on matters within the district's jurisdiction but not on the posted agenda may do so. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The board may not take action on or discuss items not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements or questions by a member of the public. The board president may refer any matter to staff for further follow-up or elect to have the matter placed on an agenda for a future meeting. Seeing I don't think we have any public here, let's move on to committees meeting out. Finance Committee. Tom, why don't you go ahead and...
Okay, yesterday, Michael and I met as the Finance Committee. We went over the final budget in considerable detail. We also reviewed all the financials. Everything looked fine. We're going to talk about the budget some more. It's an agenda item, I'm sure. And then we reviewed the district salary and benefits schedules and decided that the district is a good place to work.
And we also, one of the agenda item 12, we did determine that we recommend that we go ahead and continue the emergency action adoption. But that's item 12, and so we were happy with everything. The ad hoc facilities meeting. Tom, you want to go ahead and give that a start?
Yeah, we met yesterday and we talked about 3 different things. The architect is preparing schematic layouts of the improvements of the of both the first floor and the second floor. And we saw, Michael and I some time ago saw a real preliminary drawing layout, and that's been given to staff to go over in some detail. And the entire board is going to get a copy, I think, by the end of next week, at least. We'll get printed copies, which are, quite useful to see what's going on. So that's what's happening is the architect is trying to get him to complete drawings so we can go out to bids. And that process probably take 2 months, maybe 3 months.
I mean, the other thing we have to, look at when we started this, way back in December, November-ish, looking at the actual building and working with our consultants, we didn't have COVID yet. So a lot of things got moved around to accommodate COVID now and perhaps other things that might be in the future also. So there were some significant modifications to the layout that we had to make it safe for all of our staff. And again,
That's probably a great idea.
You'll get to see it.
Yeah. Okay, then we also talked about progress on the lease negotiation. And basically it relates to the the planning, for the improvements. And so we want to know what we're agreeing to. So we want to get a cost estimate on those improvements, and then we can work out, how much we have to pay for and how much Comcast has to pay for. And in the meantime, Felicia reported that we collected about $850,000 in rent from Comcast since we've owned the building. So we're not hurting on this. Pardon?
Rent and taxes.
Rent and what?
Yeah.
Taxes.
One more time?
Well, they're paying the bill.
They're paying for
No, we're getting $40,000 a month. So that's just rent.
Yeah.
And then and in addition to that, they pay all expenses.
We have to pay.
So then,
hang on, Tom. Pam has a question.
Right.
Oh, I thought.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I interrupted or not.
No, go ahead.
I'm just curious. That's revenue. Do we have to pay taxes on that revenue? How is that?
no, we're a public agency. We don't pay income tax.
Right. Thanks.
And the way
But that's why
we've got it worked out.
we
so
don't,
that
we don't,
we don't actually start paying. I think it's till 6 months after we sign the lease. The lease becomes effective. So that was one of the things they wanted to have us start much sooner, but we can't, anyway. So we worked out a deal that when we sign the lease, it will become 100% effective 6 months after the signing of the lease, which gives us time to do the build out and get everything ready and for us to move in. So
they're paying rent that whole 6 months too? Full rent?
Yep.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And we're going to do it right. So, Doug, why don't you start in with the Central Marin Sanitation? Go ahead, Doug. Tom.
I'm not done yet.
Okay, go for it, Tom.
The other thing we talked about was Larkspur Landing. We have a proposal out for a real estate advisor, and there was some discussion of how to select the advisor. And the way we've done it before is that staff receives proposals, which are pretty thick. They decide if they want to interview the top candidates or all of them. They we have on occasion either we've never really brought it to the whole board. We've usually either run it through like a standing committee, like the finance committee, or we can appoint an ad hoc committee to participate in the selection of this advisor, the finance advisor. So that's what we talked about on that. Hitting that one right, Michael?
Yeah.
Yes.
And yes, Doug.
All right, so why don't we just put it on a board agenda, just like any other contract? Let us look at the staff recommendations. Why do an ad hoc? Just put it on the board.
Well,
we don't want to have an interview in front of the board, right, Doug? If you want to, no, but it definitely has to come through to the entire board, no matter what. At the end, I think Pamela wanted more board participation, and one way we could do it was with an ad hoc committee. They help with the selection process, then it's brought to the board for approval.
Which we've done with the rate study stuff, and the finance committee helped interview different candidates before it was brought to the board. Anyway, it's something to consider, and we could bring it in July when we're assigning committees.
I just want to put out there that I don't agree to that method. We are dealing with this land that's let me finish, Michael. I'm not going to say much. I'm just saying I don't agree with that process, and now is the time for me to say that. Okay, so just let me finish. And if you want to go ahead with it, I don't agree with it. So I think we need more discussion around it. Maybe I'll agree.
What do you want to do? you
So-
don't agree, what do you want to do?
Wait, Tom,
I
we're
don't-
not going ahead with anything. All we're bringing
Yeah, that's
forward, what we talked about, the possibility. If anything is going to happen, it will happen in July at the regular meeting in open session, and everybody can have a say at that point. And you know, and if you have any thoughts between now and then, but it's not on the agenda to discuss that this evening. And so I heard what you said, and I have mentioned that. That's why we're even bringing it up, is because I listened to what you said, and the facilities committee did discuss it. And so we've talked about that we would bring it up as an actual agenda item in July, if at that point it seems appropriate. But that's what's going on. Let's move on to Central Marin Sanitation Agency.
Okay, we did a lot of things. We released our new website. So if anybody doesn't know the website, it's simply www.cmsa.us. It's not .com, not .org, .us. So it's really easy to remember. Beautiful website. Kate, the clerk of the board, worked on it, did a fantastic job. It's easy to navigate. I think we only had 2 suggested changes. One was mine, and that was with Pamela Miggs in mind. On the front page, on the right-hand side, there's an instant link to all the agenda items. So it's very easy to see that. The website, I'd suggest you look at it. It's beautiful. All the details that were on the old were there, but it's easier to navigate, and it's better looking. So I was very, very happy with that. We had some adjustments to the fiscal year. CMSA is now doing a 2-year budget. And so this was not a full year budget analysis. It was a half of the 2-year, kind of see where we are. And we're in very good shape. The budget's in good shape. And there were some adjustments, but it saved a lot of money and a lot of time. Maybe RVSD could consider that. It did take a considerable amount of staff time to review the current status of the budget, but it wasn't the full-on annual budget that we normally do. And so we're on target, we're in good shape, we had some adjustments, but we saved some money in doing it that way. So I thought that was good.
The reason CMSA decided to do it that way is because, unlike RVSD, where we need to be much more flexible, taking care of 200 miles of pipes in the ground all over our district, our CMSA is more able to plan out. There's less surprises with CMSA than there are with RVSD. So that's why they opted to go with a 2-year budget process, while highlighting what has changed in the past year since the budget was put out. And it seems this is the first time we've done it, and it seems to be working really well.
Yeah. We looked at the business year-end plan, and it's an amazing amount of things that we had targeted to get done this year, and almost all of them are completed or much in progress. There were about 8 items due to the COVID crisis that are in progress or delayed. But we laid out plans and we got them done, and so I was very pleased about that. You have anything else on that part, Michael?
No. One of the cool things, we're actually actively we've accepted the status of the new engine. I think it's from Germany, that's going to get shipped to us, the new cogeneration engine, which is going to be amazing. And I believe we're looking out into April, May, or June of next year to get that going. And the very cool thing about that is then we can really start producing a lot more energy and shipping it off to PG&E. And if you look at the front page of the new CMSA website, at the very bottom it shows you a very lovely graph of energy produced, how we're using the energy and where it's produced. So like you can see in that graph that when we had the power shutdown by PG&E, and we had to run off a diesel because we're not able to run off the biogas during a power shutdown, which will be fixed in the future. But the very cool thing is if you look at the current month and you go back day by day, you'll actually be able to see the minute changes in the amount of power that's been shipped. It's an online as you go how we're doing with power. So it's very cool. Take it away, Doug.
We canceled August meeting, and we revised our agency conflict of interest code simply because of some job changes. More people are subject to the 700 obligation and different reporting obligations. So we simply applied that to the appropriate people. I think that was about it.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, North Bay Watershed Association, Pam.
You're on mute.
Sorry. We've got allergies so bad. We met June 5th and our usual 2-hour meeting. We had 2 guest speakers. One was Brian McFadden, Senior Water Resources Engineer from NCRWQCB. Now, this is a test. I want somebody to tell me what that means. Does anybody know? No. It is the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Steve knew.
What?
Steve knew.
Oh. Okay, you're waiting for someone else. Anyway, it was 2 really good speakers that day, but he talked about state planning efforts to enhance and protect in-stream flows. And then Greg Andrew from the Fisheries Program, MMWD manager, he spoke too as well. It was really interesting because they talked about oxygenate, how do you say it? How much oxygen in the water that gets dissolved. And Steve, I bet you know all about this. I'm not really good at defining it as well. But if there's certain low concentrations of oxygen in the water, the fish die. And so MMWD's been doing quite a study over the last 15 years. And they finally realized that they're letting too much water out of the dam. And that water needs to sit more on these residual pools. And so they discussed that and everything. And it's kind of interesting. I didn't realize they were that much into doing that much with fish at MMWD. So the 3 areas also were discussed on certain rivers that are having issues with endangered fish, and that is the eel, Mark West Creek, Lagunitas, and Walker Creek. I'm getting a echo in here. Do you hear it?
It looks like Doug's computer is also, there we go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's gone. Okay, so the other speaker who was there talked about the Potter Valley project, which I kind of hear a little gossip here and there, and it kind of was off the chart. And so Pamela Jean, who's the assistant manager of Sonoma Water, came and spoke. She was fabulous. And there's another one. What is FERC? Does anybody know what FERC is? It's the Federal
Emergency Regulatory Commission.
It's actually energy, but you get a star. So it all has to do with the Potter Valley project, and FRC is kind of coming into phase now because they are going to tear down the Scott Dam up there because they need that water to come down into from the Eel River to the Russian River, and it's all for various causes, obviously, like agriculture and the fish, Chinook salmon, etc., steelhead. And so what happened was PG&E actually went after to relicense the area, and then PG&E went bankrupt. So now it's open, and I believe there is an application in place right now. is a bit complicated. There's also a hydro water plant up there, which I didn't know existed at the headwaters of the Eel River. It's not producing much. So it was really interesting to learn about all the water and how it's going to change, and the tribes are involved, and they're very supportive on moving this ahead to take out the Scott Dam. And I think that's kind of it. So that's it. Thank you. Oh, and next month we're going on a field trip if it all works out, and I'm not sure where.
Okay. Number 5, verbal report by general manager.
Great. Let's see. Let me pull my notes here. Thank you, Director Meggs, on that overview. It actually is the nexus to Ross Valley Sanitary District of all that, moving a little bit of Eel River water down the Russian River and all that. It does benefit folks in that watershed. But 1/4 of the Marin Municipal Water District raw water, 1/4 of the water supply in our service area comes from the Russian River. And by extension, a little bit of the Eel River because of the Potter Valley project. And so that's part of what people use in our district, and then goes down our pipes, and we manage it to get to CMSA. All right, on my report, I just want to highlight 2 things, and I'll talk about some news on our capital projects, which are going strong now because it's that time of the year. First, I got some good news, and I wanted to share my screen. Hey, Julia, you can help me. The good news is the State Water Board's State Revolving Fund has approved our funding for $4,562,000. That was yesterday at the State. And the reason why I wanted to share my screen is I wanted to just show you a table from that report, and to illustrate where we were in the statewide ranking. So Julia, can you help me?
Steve, I think you're still the presenter, so I think you should be able to share your screen. Are you not?
Okay. I don't have a share button here. Let's see, maybe I need to move things around.
Okay, let me look.
There we go. Okay, and then does everybody see it? So there's a table, and I'm going to scroll up. And so where we're at here, these are a bunch of projects, and they're shown in green, right? And as I scroll by, you see, San Francisco and everything. So if anything is in green, it's an existing project that's been approved. And so there's a backlog in the state, Inland Empire, I'm scrolling down, Orange County, San Diego, Silicon Valley, which is Redwood City, Oxnard. Okay, so I'm scrolling. Okay, the first white row is the first new project to be considered in the state of California. And can you see that right there? Ross Valley Sanitary District. And the second one is West County, which is across the bay in Richmond. Then there's Los Angeles, Sanitary District of Los Angeles, and Crestline, which is up in the San Bernardino Mountains. And that is it. That's all. Only 5 projects in the state got in the door guaranteed, because there's only about $308 million available. And we were the first. So congratulations. And actually the way this all worked, we went ahead and selected, it's known as match financing, and you might remember, so I can unshare this now, I guess, if that's okay. I hope that was interesting.
That's based on priority score. We got a high score.
Yeah, and we had 2 points added to our score because we are providing match financing as part of our application. And what that means is we provide, in our case, 16.67% of the project cost, which the total project cost is estimated at $5,475,000 for this, the last leg of the Butterfield project up in San Anselmo. And so 16.67% of that we finance, and we receive a loan for 83.3% of the project cost. So we are required to pay the state board 100% of the project cost at 0% interest over 20 years. That's the deal. And as we discussed in December, there's a trade-off of risk or what have you. If interest rates start to go higher, this really benefits us selecting this method. If the base interest rates go down, this isn't as beneficial to us. That's the financial risk. But that said, we can afford to put money up through our capital program, but we really will benefit from this low interest loan. And it's actually 0% the way, on that 83% share. So anyway, by doing things that way, we got extra credit, and it actually made us make the cut in getting financed versus not getting approved for financing. So that's the good news story. So I can unshare now. How do we, let's see.
The button is probably at the top of the screen.
Oh yeah, that's right. Did I do it?
Yep.
Okay. Then the second thing I'd like to report on is something we're participating with other agencies. You may remember Baywork. They had their annual meeting today, actually, as a virtual meeting, and there were 35 participants in the meeting. Some were double, like Steve Mixis and I both attended. And they're transitioning this year, and this is currently there are 30 Bay Area water and wastewater agencies that are part of Baywork to share knowledge and resources, but also be a way of recruiting or getting the word out about jobs that are available in the wastewater and the water fields. And we're transitioning in the age of COVID to more virtual career fairs. So I think folks are learning as we go. But a couple of news items, there were 30 member agencies. As of today, 8 new agencies joined Baywork. And among the 8 new agencies is Sonoma Water, by the way, a North Bay Watershed cohort. And then we also, Napa is already a member, as is Windsor and Petaluma. There were other additions like Pittsburgh, but also big agencies like East Bay Mud and Santa Clara Valley Water District, SFPUC. So through this effort, we're pooling, our resources, knowledge, sharing information, and Stephen Mixis has been active, and he receives a lot of accolades and credit from fellow agencies. During the call, they say Steve Mixis is a rock star. Very well respected Bay Area wide.
Thank you.
So, and then one thing, and I'll let you say something, Mixis, but one thing I did note that on the candidate development initiative, it's known as Candidate Development Initiative, trying to get people in junior colleges interested in these careers. We participated in that, and we brought our truck out to Laney College, and as part of the presentation of the item, there were pictures of our staff. Albert Coates and Brady Stewart were on the presentation to the regional group, and they thanked us. So that was nice to receive that peer recognition through Baywork. So it's a growing concern. We're going to continue to stay involved because we are proud of the technology developments that we've been bringing forward. We bring our iPhones in the field. We can identify our assets right away on real time with our iPhones, and we use technology to do our inspections, and it makes things more efficient, and we can share what we've learned with others through Baywork and other forums like this. So they have an annual budget of $175,000. So we contribute a couple $1,000 in our tier as a mid-range sized agency. So it's not a huge endeavor, but they get a lot done with that small amount of funding that we leverage. So like I said, $175,000 budget. We just contribute a few $1,000s. Anything you'd like to add, Mixus? I think you deserve a lot of credit for plugging us in and raising our stature region-wide on this effort.
Absolutely. The involvement in Bayworks has been an extremely great experience for myself, staff members. We were also in an AWWA journal in May, which as soon as I get the magazines, I'll give to Steve to disperse. But it was a great, great journal entry into our cross-training events and everything else. So I'm having an incredible time working with Bayworks, and I'd like to thank Steve and Felicia for all their support.
Sure, great. And then finally, I don't want to go on too long, but we do have 3 capital projects, major projects underway. Our force main appurtenances project, we have 1 completed, 1 almost complete, and you may notice we're working under 101. It's in night work right now. We're trying to get permission from Caltrans to work during the day, but we're doing our ARV and plug valve work in the next 2 weeks. In that area, we've been wanting to, as an agency, we've been wanting to do this work, I think, for about 5 years. So it's very gratifying to see it happening now with the K-rails and the southbound 101 on-ramp from Sir Francis Drake. That's our project. And so we're making progress. On Larkspur Landing cleanup, things are moving really quickly. I was a little concerned about noise because we were going to do pile drive, or we're going to install piles for shoring. But it turns out our staff that works right there didn't even notice it happened. Most of the piles are already installed. So they use this vibrating technology. And while we warned residents that there might be extra noise this year, it's turned out it's been unnoticeable. So knock on wood, that's going pretty well. We're not really having the impact on the neighborhood so far. And if you go by there, you'll see that there's big mounds of earth. We're getting a lot of work done. And then finally, we did, thanks to the board's special meeting, and we got the award to Laurel Grove Sewer Rehabilitation Project going. We had the pre-construction meeting last week. The county was at the meeting, Marin Municipal Water District, PG&E. We're really gathering all the utilities and coordinating with them. It's dynamic because we're trying to play off of the Sir Francis Drake improvements project, that whole county project. We want to make sure that our work fits in with the schedule of all the different other work. So we're continuing to work cooperatively with the county, and we have another meeting with them in the coming days to refine that scheduling. And that's all I have. Thanks very much.
Okay. So verbal report by board members and requests for future items.
Michael?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to follow up on the SRF loan. I was comparing our contribution is 16.7%, and then we pay back 100%. But if you compare it to our very favorable 2019 revenue bond sale, their interest is about 39% of the payments. So an SRF loan is, virtually it's less than half what we would pay with our own financing, even with our AA rating.
Yeah, I remember we've been pushing for this since 6 years since I've been on the board. We've been talking about SRF.
And even before that, I remember Pat Guasco would say, "Oh, it's really complicated. Those are really hard to get." So kudos to everybody who got it done.
Yeah. Felicia helped tremendously, and our consultant George Hicks made sure that we had everything lined up. And you might remember in December, you all reviewed and approved the resolutions to keep us on track. So it's a team effort. Thanks for that analysis, Tom. That really sheds light on how important and beneficial this tool is.
Okay, I might just also mention for the public outreach people, and Stephen, there's absolutely wonderful banners that are on Pump Station 15 and also the one by Hall Middle School. And I spend a lot of time riding my bicycle, as you may have noticed, and there are always people out there with their kids now who love our cartoon characters, and they're having to, Mommy, you can't flush those wipes down that toilet anymore. So the message is getting out. So good job, public outreach people. Okay, there's nothing else.
I think that was another thing that Mixus did. Am I right? Mixus, take your mute out. Yeah. Okay, that was a Mixus thing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
If he takes off his shirt, we'll see a large S right here for Superman. Anyway, let's go on to the consent calendar. Matters listed under this item are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. The consent calendar may include resolutions, therefore the motion, second, and vote will also be applicable to the resolutions and recorded accordingly. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the board or the public prior to the time the board votes on the motion to adopt. So there's no public here. Would anybody like to pull anything off the consent calendar?
I don't know if I need to, but I guess so. I just wanted a housekeeping question about item 7D. It's about scheduling our meeting, so you can pull it if you want, but our regular board meeting's not on July 8th, is it? That's weird.
We had changed that months ago. And
To the 8th?
I believe so. Correct me if I'm wrong. Julia's nodding yes.
As the staff report says, we moved it because of some things not happening, right, CASA or?
Yeah, right. There was just, scheduling, summer scheduling, and COVID has changed that. Yeah.
It's fine. I was just curious. Thank you.
So do I hear a motion?
I moved the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. You do your thing. Unmute first, dear.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly. Director Kelly, you're muted.
Doug?
Yes.
Thank you. Megs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein,
Yes.
unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to move item, I believe, 10. Is that correct? Up?
Yeah.
To the current one. Okay. Item 10. Consideration of adopting resolution number 20-1589, updating Ross Valley Sanitary District standard specifications, drawings, and approved materials. So, General Manager Moore, do your thing.
Thank you. And as we said earlier, Inland Shu is here from Harris and Associates to maybe provide a little answers to questions if you may have them, or I would ask you, Inland, after I give my overview, I'll hand it off to you if you can think of anything I've said, or maybe even something you'd like to comment on the process. That'd be great to hear from you. I will introduce the item. It's a 5-year update of our standard specifications, drawings, and approved materials. And as you can imagine, things change over 5 years. Especially in what I would call a somewhat accelerated program of implementation in capital and in working with the laterals, because of the adoption of the lateral ordinance that was required as part of the enforcement orders from the Regional Water Board. We became this agency adopted an accelerated mode of implementation of a lot of things getting built. Along the way, we learned about the availability of materials, but also just how the procedures of installing all of this equipment, pipes, manholes, valves with the pressure sewer system, working in and around the force mains, learning about the durability, the reliability of materials, and the methods of installation and backfill and trenches and all that kind of thing. So there's been a lot of lessons learned. Harrison Associates was a good choice to assist us because they were the design engineer and performed engineering services during construction for a number of our complex projects that really sprawled all over the district. The two that come to mind are the 15/16 gravity sewer improvements project, and then the 16/17 gravity sewer improvements or rehabilitation projects, which included the larger diameter projects in Butterfield, smaller diameter projects that were pipe bursting, open trench, and cured in place pipe lining, CIP lining, all throughout neighborhoods of our district based on condition assessment and prioritization, some of which was informed by the early planning documents of the 2000s. So Harris Associates did hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of design engineering and oversight during construction. And so they were a good team member to keep track of changes that were suggested to the standard specs package. As well, we had, you remember Dennis Gavalos, we gave him a proclamation. He retired in January. And so you recall also, I mentioned in the staff report that this was a business plan priority. I saw that with Dennis retiring, wrapping up these projects, and already in the office halls talking about problems that we saw with standard specs, this is a good time for us to prioritize it, to update it for future projects based on lessons learned. So we had Dennis in the early stages, and then we also had our inspectors involved. I made sure I got condition assessment and repair and line maintenance folks, as well as Steve Mixes chiming in to make sure this really represented our staff's experience and in doing the procedures. We also brought in Newt Engineering and SOMAS, who are consultants that have been working for us implementing projects and work in Marin County, so they know about working with the roads departments in the different cities and counties and what they're looking for, and making sure our specifications don't conflict with the towns and the county. So all those things we brought to the table in several meetings, a couple of iterations, and I want to give you a flavor for the level of change. It's a 540-page document. There's actually some redundancy because the approved materials for side sewers or laterals, that's a synonym. Side sewer is a lateral, private lateral. We have some redundancy of the approved materials that's an appendix for side sewers versus the larger list of approved materials for all of sewer mains and gravity and force mains. So just a little insight. I didn't think we needed to put the whole package in the board packet, but I did. And Inland, I do want to thank you. I asked him to do this so you would have a little more idea about the changes that we've made, and that the attachment B is a track changes version, quote unquote, of the drawing. So I had Inland go through and make a yellow highlight version so that you have an idea of the flavor of the level of changes that we made. So it's not just a few typos. We really went in and made some changes, and I gave you a bullet list in the staff report of examples for your reference in case you have any specific questions or comments about what we changed in our standard specs. There is a policy aspect to it, because when a plumber or an applicant, maybe Marin General Hospital, somebody comes to us and says, what's the district's policy on pumping systems for residential properties or for apartments? Well, we have a policy, quote unquote. These are our standard specs. They guide how we accept sewer systems. What's the minimum slope of a 6-inch diameter lateral? we have that in here, you know, and by the way, we didn't change that. So there's a policy aspect to it. So I wanted to give you a flavor for the level of detail, and we're available to answer any questions. And Lynn, based on that introduction, is there anything you'd like to add, let the board know about the project?
Thanks. So first of all, thanks Steve for and also for the Ross Valley District for providing this opportunity for Harris and Associates and me to assist with this standards update. Like Steve said, Harris have been working with the district for the past, even before I came to Harris. I know many years, and we've been working on a number of capital improvement projects, and we have been gathering those comments, suggestions, feedbacks, recommendations from the district, from construction staff and engineers, and also from Harris. So I believe the goal of this project is to, like Steve mentioned in this staff report, to make sure this updated standards is consistent with industrial standards, with those products readily available, and also those methods that of installations, constructions more efficient for staff to from that standpoint. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, hi. So I'll get to you, Tom, in a second. I'd just like to say that this is, I think, a huge thing that staff has done. I've been around here for 6 years now, and we've never gotten ourselves out of the quote unquote emergency mode long enough to go back and be able to do these very, very important and vital projects to bring us into the future. And so it's really an achievement that staff was able to get this done at this time. So Tom has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if we coordinated this with our nearby other sanitary districts. Did we coordinate it with them, or how do we do that?
Well, actually, no, we did not coordinate it. I know from my previous work, the SD1 standard specs from 1996 were used by other sanitary districts, and they were a go-to reference because not all sanitary districts have standard specifications. So that's a little insight there. But yeah, that's one thing we did not do. We really relied on our own experience and our own circle of expertise, and even that coordinating among that group. So it's something, we could hit the pause button and look, but
or maybe we should share it with them.
Clearly, yeah, and I appreciate that. I will mention that in my monthly coordination with the JPA agencies, that we've completed this work, and I guess I would say by virtue of involving Mark Wilson in our review group, we benefited from specifications of other Marin County agencies through his input, because we did make some changes. For instance, we included some valves, we made some modifications, slope detail. So his view of our specs was informed by his knowledge of other specifications throughout the county.
Michael.
The other thing I wanted to
go ahead, Michael. Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
No, Tom, finish your thing.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask was, have plumbers, like the contractors told us, gee, this one is onerous, or because it seems to me a number of years ago, I kind of heard that some of the things were onerous or expensive. Did we incorporate their comments if we heard them?
Let me answer that. Hold on. If you remember, Steve, I met with the PHCC of the Redwood Empire, the plumbing, heating, cooling contractors of the Redwood Empire, and they were the ones that complained that ours were more onerous. Steve and Steve spoke to me about that, and I think your answer was that you believed you had put in specifications that are appropriate, especially that under the idea that we're under a cease and desist order, that we can't have couplings and links break, fail. But I would like to address that. I mean, if the PHCC of the Redwood Empire reads this one, are they going to be even more sad than they were last time?
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, that is an interesting dynamic, you all, and it's totally legitimate to ask that question. You know, them as users, you know, are they going to be satisfied? And you know, Mixus, you can chime in too. That we're going to be. I want to take a step back. We really want the highest quality product. You know, there are certain things that you could do that would move sewage, but it wouldn't last as long. One classic example is the use of ABS pipe. ABS pipe looks pretty solid. It's the black stuff that is used by plumbers to put in venting and even some piping within the foundation of a building. And a lot of contractors just want to keep on using that cheaper pipe and send it on out to the street. That will fail. That'll last, you know, and then if something starts driving over it, it'll crack and it will create I&I, you know, infiltration and inflow and exfiltration, you know, into the ambient environment. And so there's pushback on our insistence on our approved materials list. And so we anticipate and accept that to some extent because we want durable, reliable infrastructure on private and public property throughout our system. And our performance on infiltration inflow depends on that. So yeah, we're more onerous. We want flexibility, and we actually incorporated a little bit more acceptable alternatives for going from the lateral to the main, for instance. We actually expanded and added the quick seal approach for larger diameter pipe as an example. But we don't mind being a little bit more stringent because we think we get a better high quality infrastructure product in the end. Mixus, do you have any other examples you want to provide?
Absolutely. And again, contractors, they have a lot of expenses. They do not want to keep all this stuff in their shops. It's inferior material. You're going to get a better investment on the material that we're telling contractors to put in the ground. So there's a whole host of reasons that Steve just mentioned why this is more appropriate, because your return on investment is going to be far greater and extends the life of the asset.
And Lynn, you got any examples or comments on that?
Yeah, so just to add my 2 cents here. Yeah, for example, for this approved material list, the current one is 2015. We have those products, you know, from those past years, and you know those we have those feedbacks from those end users and from contractors, and some products turns out to be, you know, not available anymore, or you know they found some, you know, other products, you know, with better qualities, last longer, you know, have a, you know, if you look at, you know, not only the purchase, but also like the cost for maintenance, it's actually, you know, we will be able to find those products, and, you know, so that's one of the reasons we are updating the approved material list to be able to reflect what's the high quality products in the market, and also Ross Valley's, you know, for the contractors, for Ross Valley to be able to access to.
Well, Doug.
Ginland, how much is our standards? How different are our standards from statewide standards? Because that's what I was hearing from that one particular group, which is, they all follow the standards of the state. Ours are different, and they found that challenging. So how different are ours from the state, would you say?
Sorry, who I'm speaking with? Sorry,
Doug.
Oh, okay. So I just want to make sure I understand your question. Are you asking the current 2020 standards, how different this 2020 is compared to the current 2015?
No.
No.
How different are our standards from statewide standards? Isn't there a statewide document on materials that are appropriate for use?
So from my knowledge, each municipality or agency, some of those, they have their own approved material list. For example, Sacramento area sanitary district or West County, some agencies they have their own approved material list, but some don't. But I think Ross Valley is one of those agencies, who has its own approved material list, and we want to make sure, Steve, just correct me if I'm wrong. We create this approved material list. Even sometimes other agencies will look up our, Ross Valley's approved material list, because from what I know, Ross Valley's approved material list is up to date. Have those products available for other agencies to look at, and if they want to use based on this approved material list, it's available.
That doesn't answer my question. So if you're a state, if you're a smaller agency, let's say Modesto, I don't mean that's small, but let's say you're a different agency, Modesto or Fresno or Yuba City, and you don't have any standards of your own. What standards do people have to follow?
I would recommend Ross Valley standards, because
no, I'm saying by law.
By law, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any law.
You're not aware of any statewide standards for plumbing materials?
No, but that, we could look into that. I'm not going to state something I don't know about. I could research that.
Mixus, do you know about that?
So can I chime in? So there's a California plumbing code that's statewide that we also incorporate into the Ross Valley standards.
Okay, so how different is ours from that plumbing code?
So this standards covers force main and laterals and gravity sewer pipes and pump stations.
Our standard specs are incredibly detailed, and a lot of other smaller agencies go off of like Caltrans, the Uniform Plumbing Code, which is not updated regularly. So in my eyes, we are at the forefront of investing public funds into our infrastructure for laterals. I've worked in my previous experience as a contractor with agencies. All of them do have standards and specs, Director Kelly, but some of them are 3 pages, some of them are 580 pages. So it does vary considerably.
Yeah, our approach to this project was to go line by line through the 2015 specs, which were an improvement on the 1996 specs, and are a Marin County-wide reference. And it was not part of our scope to compare to other agencies or to refer to do a comprehensive analysis of statewide recommendations or AWA. The presumption is that the 2015 standards already had done that, and we were making updates based on availability and durability, and also a lot of procedural updates. And so that wasn't part of the scope.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion, Steve, that we forward this document? I mean, I haven't looked at the whole 560-page document yet. I did look at this staff report. You know, I'm really pleased that we have standards. I'm not suggesting we lower our standards. I'm suggesting that maybe we help other parts of the state to raise their standards. So maybe this could be forwarded to the whoever writes. And I'm sorry, I don't know what the agency that Yinlun was referring to, but the State Plumbing Association standards, or whoever, whatever that is. And Stephen Mixus, you must know what that was. Whatever agency handles that, I think this is a much more comprehensive document, and that's fantastic. I'm glad we did it in 2015. I'm glad we're updating it now. But I think it is also fair. One of the things that PHCC of Redwood Empire complained about is, you know, they step over into Nevada and they don't have to follow those standards. That's fine. Maybe they should. So, you know, this is something that this district is a leader on. Let's offer that to agencies, particularly statewide agencies, that might look at it and say, you know what, this ought to be a statewide regulation.
Yeah, it's right. So no question, we're always an open book, you know, in terms of making this available on our website, you know, offering it as a reference. I think that it has a standalone value, as Inland mentioned, you know, just by having the update, having gone through this process, it was quite vetted with knowledgeable people. It has value. It's imperfect, you know, it's just, but we do use these specifications commonly in our contracts. If you dig into our specification book for these last capital projects, you know, that we're currently under construction, the dewatering specification for groundwater and the procedure for dealing with that in the trench is the same as our standard specs. You know, it's the same language. And so we're just looking at, you know, internal consistency and readability, implement, you know, easy to implement, where we've had conflicts or, you know, what's the right, ambiguous direction, you know, one part of the specification says this, another part says this, and that's the kind of thing, you know, that confuses plumbers. We identified some of those things and got rid of some language that was problematic in implementing, you know, and so there's examples of that. But like I said, it was really a refinement based on experience was the scope, and to your point, we're always willing to share, just like we do with our lateral ordinance. But remember, you can lead a horse to water, right? In the Backwood Collection System Committee, I tell people, you know, our lateral ordinance is pretty good. It's the 2018 update is pretty specific and helpful for a number of things, like, you know, common interest developments. There's a timeline for public agencies, and it's there. But San Rafael Sanitation District, when they had a choice, they'd rather copy Las Colinas because they're in the same city limits, even though San Rafael Sanitation District's in the same CMSA JPA, and they probably should have copied our lateral ordinance because ours is more comprehensive and specific, but they didn't do it, you know. So it's up to those independent agencies to make those decisions, but we can always make this product available, and it stands alone. If adopted by you, it's a 2020 update, and that speaks a lot, you know, in terms of being current.
Steve, that's fine. Just as an FYI, I spoke to one of the board members. It might have been the board president of Las Colinas, and I believe it was I also spoke to the general manager last year at the CMSA convention, and Las Colinas is taking another look at following our lateral ordinance. So, you know, I appreciate that we are a leader in a lot of ways. I understand you can lead a horse to water, but some of the water we have horses wouldn't want to drink. Let's just make sure that we're continuing to be a leader, and I believe that, you know, I'm very pleased with the document. I just want to make us, you know, I think we should send that. So you have these monthly meetings, don't you, with the other agencies?
Yeah.
I think you should bring it to their attention, and as I said, maybe you should send it to the regional water board or state water board. Thanks. I've beaten this enough.
I'll take that to heart. You know, we can get the word out, and we're going to put in our, you know, I'll put in my bulletin if you all approve it, and we'll talk about why it's an innovation. But yeah, it was. There was more we could have done, though. I acknowledge that, but we did it on a lean and mean budget, right, Inland? Yeah, you know, 25 grand, and then a lot of internal time and expertise to get it where it is, and so that's where we are.
Okay, I think Pam has a question.
So I just want to be clear. So every district is doing this, but doing it probably differently to some degree. Is that correct?
Not every district is doing this, but they are all unique. Yes.
So yeah, you need to have a summit and then divide up the costs like we're doing with the Comcast PSAs. Anyway, I found it to be very interesting. I mean, it's a guide, is the way I look at it. And yeah, they can come to us. We could rent it out, Steve. We could rent it out. Getting better.
They can copy it. You know, when I was working at Newt Engineering in the 2000s, I did work in various districts throughout Marin County and beyond, out in Contra Costa or down Montera, and I would refer to SD1 standard specs when the locals didn't have something, you know, and so this book of standard specs has always been a reference. And we just wanted to update it because there were some things in there we think needed to be changed. So that was really the driver.
Okay.
And as well, I just want to say, as I understood from the staff report, part of it was also to pull Dennis Cavallo's knowledge, right?
Yeah.
In, you know, into it before he got out the door.
Yeah, and you know, it was great. You know, that first meeting, we just kind of sat back and took notes, you know. And we walked through the document, and Inland was there marking up his binder, and so that was, yeah, him and others too.
And I'm glad that we're working so closely with Newt because there was a little rift for a while. So I'm happy they participated in this too.
And
Are you ready for a motion, President Burstein?
Well, we first have to ask for the public. Seeing none, do I have any more comments? And if not, do I have a motion?
I move we adopt resolution 2015-89, updating RVSD standard specifications and drawings and the approved materials list.
I would second that.
Okay, Doug Kelly seconds. Julia, please.
Gaffney? Director Gaffney, you're muted.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Director Kelly?
Yes.
Meggs?
Yes.
Scylla?
Yes.
Borstein?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you, board, and thank you, Inland, for your work, and we'll be in touch.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, board agenda item number 8. Consideration of approving resolution number 20-1587, adopting the fiscal year 2020-21 budget. A lot of work went into this, and we discussed it at the last meeting when we saw the draft resolution. And so Steve and maybe Felicia or whoever else you deem necessary from staff to say something, go for it.
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Director Borstein and board. We're pleased to present the proposed 2020-2021 fiscal budget. And as you noted, we presented it last month and received comments and made some changes, and Felicia authored the staff report, and she outlined those changes related to increasing the lateral replacement grant reducing personnel costs, especially for overtime, adjusting the CMSA charges. We adjusted the capital projects budget upward to account for anticipated costs of renovating the 1111 Anderson building. But we did want to highlight, as she did in this staff report, that we have sharpened our pencil in certain areas, suggesting we don't need to have as many outside services. We can freeze some of our vacancies to tighten our belts a little bit. And we're always looking for ways technology can help us be more efficient, reduce overtime costs, for instance, through the use of smart covers as remote monitoring instead of sending staff out on call, as an example. With that, it's a $20 million operating budget. This year's capital is a little over 15 million. I will just note that on the capital side of things, that's about half this year that we've compared to the last 2 consecutive years of about $30 million of capital. This coming year, we anticipate about 15 million. The following year, maybe more like 10 or 11 million. And, Schedule 9 of the budget lays out some of these numbers where I anticipate a bit of a trough in capital funding that will allow us to catch up and create more capital reserves. Although this budget does restore the capital reserve, and Felicia can highlight that, which is good news. That shows the sound footing that we're at. But if you look at Schedule 9, you'll see that the debt service ratio, we're planning to improve it through reduced capital spending a couple of years out, and then we'll resume a little bit more of a commitment to capital investment. So it'll give us a chance to catch our breath a little bit financially and deal with, debt service. And with the uncertainties around the Larkspur Landing property, we don't make any assumptions in this budget or for long-term or short-term about Larkspur Landing. And so that will be to be determined how that affects our financial standing, but we know it's tied to the bonds that we issued last year because we used part of those bonds to fund the cleanup that is underway and going well. That one appears to be on budget, in the 9.6 million range. And there may be some professional services that exceed that, but that seems to be coming in where we hope it will. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to Felicia because she has some other details to report in this budget. And with that, we'll happily take any questions and direction. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I would like to thank Melvin and Steve Mixis and you, of course. This is a group effort to put this budget together every year. I have to say this year it went nicely. We did also receive some comments from the Finance Committee. We've incorporated those comments from the draft budget into the final budget, and then a few other comments from other board members that we'll incorporate into the final printed draft. And I can go into more details with that if the board's interested. But I have been taking copious notes. Melvin's been taking copious notes. We do still have a couple of more edits that we'll be making before you get the final printed copy after you review this tonight. So feel free to continue to give us comments and feedback. Again, I'm very proud of the work that we're doing here at the district. I think this is a good budget document. It's been a difficult year, of course, financially for many public agencies, in our area and of course across the country and throughout the world. So it was very important for us to take a hard look at our expenses and our operating needs and try to, like Steve said, sharpen our budget, sharpen our pencil as much as we could. I think we did a good job with that. And again, I've made some additional notes and happy to take any questions or further comments or edits on this final draft, if you will. Thanks.
Yeah. One of the nice things that we talked about was we noticed that in all the capital improvement, there's a lovely location map now, so that when you read it, you can actually, there's a map of where we're actually going to be doing the work. And so that's a very nice thing that occurred. Other board members? Director Miggs.
Well, I'll be kind of brief, thanks to Felicia, who answered a bunch of my questions. Thank you, Felicia, that was very helpful. Okay, so the Verizon bill and the AT&T bill is just off the charts. I've been saying this for years, and I'm saying it again. We need to come up with a bundle and take care of that, because I think we could save thousands. So that's one thing. Secondly, about the OPED, we decreased our OPED to put in OPED money, but in it the budget says to lower the rate. I think it's 350,000. How much will it lower the rate by doing that? I couldn't find that. Is that a broad statement, or do we actually have those numbers? Or
That was,
so I think
go ahead.
what you're, yeah, thanks, Steve. I think what you're referring to is the board's commitment to lower our unfunded liability, and we will be making an additional contribution over our required contribution of $100,000 a year. That'll take a few years for us to become fully funded. I think it was about 6 years of $100,000 additional contributions.
right, but the statement says by doing this lower amount, currently we're going to lower our rate for our rate in the future. I'm not sure exactly what that's referring to. That's
our sewer service charges, maybe, is that what we were looking at? Because yeah, at one point we did extend the payoff, the investment to pay off our unfunded liability in order to keep the sewer service rates reasonable for the ratepayers. That was calculated as part of our rate study. Yes, thanks, Doug.
Yeah, I want to remind you, Pam, during our rate study, and as part of the rate study, we had the pension liability study, not as a separate, well, it was separate. It was done by a separate consultant, but it was at the board's request, part and parcel of the rate study itself, because we wanted to be completely transparent with the public that yes, we do have pension problems. Here's what they are. Here's what we're doing about it. And if you remember the chart, and on the bottom of the chart, we were playing with whether it should be a 3.7% increase or a 3.2 or a 3.6. And if you remember, we played with it. If we made it 3 and 3 and 3, at the end of this 6 years, when our OPEB is supposedly paid off, and at the end of 12 years, when our pension liability is paid off, then at that point, our ongoing costs will be a lot less because we won't be paying this higher rate in order to pay off unfunded. We'll be funded. So when you're trying to catch up, you got to pay more in debt than when you're pay as you go. So that was the whole idea of doing that.
I get it. It's sort of flashing back now in my brain. Okay, and then last, so there's usually like a percentage on a debt service for our district. Do you know what that percent is, Felicia?
The percentage on our debt service.
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. We have a debt service ratio that we keep track of per policy. Is that
I think that's
what you're thinking about? So it's for fiscal year 2021, it's 1.7, which is higher than the board policy of 1.5. So that's a good number.
okay.
Yeah, and on that, Director Meggs, as a reference, page 78 of the board packet or page 38 of the budget document has the second half of Schedule 9. And Schedule 9 is that 5-year forecast, or 6-year actually, including 5-year beyond this year, so 6 years total. So if you look at the final row in Schedule 9, you'll see that we have the debt service ratio indicated for that year, and then the debt ratio for district financial policy is below that. You know, that doesn't change. That's 1.5, and the goal is to always be above 1.5. And so in that, you'll see that this year we're 1.7, next year 1.8, following year 1.9, and then up to 2.0. So it's improving based on how we've estimated what our capital and other expenditures will be.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to go back just for a second. And for my purposes, I know that what we're doing now is in the district is extremely data driven. We have huge amounts of data traveling all over the place. Not just voice out there for our guys to have cell phones, but we're sending work orders and maps, and we're only going to get more and more data driven as we go. And so I've looked at the numbers for our voice and data, and although it is a big number, that's part of what we do. And I think we should always be looking at that, but I'm not all that convinced that those numbers aren't even going to go higher in the future when we start talking about our guys in the field with virtual reality goggles being able to look up work orders as they go. It's just an extraordinary, we just added 35 more covers that all have data communications back to the mothership. And maybe perhaps when we can move all of our operations to Anderson Avenue, we might see some savings there. But boy, are we data and voice driven out in the field right now. And although it is a big number, I'm not sure that that's going to go down anytime soon. Anybody else?
Are you talking about what I just brought up about the phones?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, that it is a big number.
You know what I think I should do is probably pull every single month and look and see what those numbers are, and then maybe talk to some other sanitary districts, because I think it's way off the charts. But I hear you, but I still think we could do better. I'm just talking about saving money. Now it's tough. So. We perhaps are more data and voice driven than other sanitary districts who rely a lot on going out with paper orders here and there. So feel free to do that and bring it forward again. I think we are a forefront of technology at the Ross Valley Sanitary District, thanks to our staff and what our board has done in the past. So please feel free to look at it. And thank you for bringing it to the attention. Anyway, anybody else? And seeing no, oh wait, Tom he's waving a finger.
Well, I just wanted to say that I've been over this pretty carefully and made a lot of comments that I gave to staff. And they're going to incorporate them, or already did. And I would like to, is it appropriate for me to make a motion?
I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I move that we adopt resolution 2015-87 to adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget. And Felicia mentioned that there's going to be a few more changes. I believe none of them are substantial, right? They're kind of, for example, the projection percentages. So including some minor corrections, not additions to expenses or anything like that, including those. Part of my motion.
Thank you.
I'll second. And I just want to say I love the fact that some PAYGO talk is starting to come up into these budgets. Yeah. And I think we did most of the work when we thought about the 5-year rate study. That's the setting of the rates going out. We did, from my perspective, on the policies that are involved in this. That was when we did this work. So grateful to you guys for carrying it through. But that is a second.
Okay. Julia.
Okay. Gaffney.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Megs.
Yes.
Scylla.
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes, and thank you so much to all the staff every year, the hard work, and it's just, they keep on, for me, getting easier to read. So you must be doing something right.
Thank you, board. It means a lot. We appreciate your support and your thorough review.
Okay. Agenda item 9, consideration of adopting resolution number 20-1588, approving salary and benefit schedules for unrepresented employees of the district.
Great. I'm going to ask Felicia Newhouse to introduce this, and she'll probably know, but we're doing this as an annual process as of a couple years ago, just as a procedural matter, because of the 1/3 of our staff are unrepresented and 2/3 are represented, and just had that MOU adopted last fall. That's a 5-year commitment, but for the 1/3 of the employees, we have an annual process of reviewing the salary and benefits. Felicia?
That's exactly right. Thank you, Steve. The board last approved this, well, actually the board reviewed this resolution a couple of times in the last fiscal year. The first time was in September in concert with the adoption of the 5-year MOU for represented staff, as Steve just pointed out. And that was also as a result of a classification and compensation study that was performed for all staff for the district. And then, if the board recalls, there was a minor edit to this resolution for the enhanced retiree medical benefit, the employee-funded enhanced retiree medical benefit, which at the time the board approved the program, staff had been advised by CalPERS that those who weren't interested in participating could opt out. And then when staff went to actually implement the program with CalPERS, they said, oh, actually, that's not entirely true. We need to have, everybody in the boat. So beyond that, you'll find it's a pretty identical resolution to what was approved previously, with the exception of the annual COLA, which has been incorporated into this resolution. The COLA is in line with the COLA that's offered offered to the represented staff this year, based on the SF Bay Area CPI in April, which was a kind of a jaw-dropping 1.1% compared to February, which was 2.9, which was still on a downward trend, but took a really huge dive as clearly as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The MOU incorporates a floor and a ceiling for the CPI, which is 2.5% floor and 4% ceiling. So based on that plus the 0.5% additional that's incorporated, the CPI for this unrepresented group would be 3% for the year. I do want to note that the CPI in April, while it was a dropping 1.1%, that part of the reason for that, it appears, is that when they do the CPI research, they are actually collecting that data, I didn't realize, in person and by phone and internet. And so the people who actually perform the data analysis couldn't do the full scope of data analysis that they normally do because of the shutdown. And of course, another part of that data analysis that was impacted was those businesses that were either temporarily closed or otherwise operating at a different capacity during the shutdown, impacted their ability to collect data. So it'll be interesting to see how the CPI progresses through the remainder of the year. But in any event, this resolution does represent the full scope of salary and benefits for your unrepresented staff at the district, and is being presented to you as part of the budget process for the coming fiscal year. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, board, any questions for Felicia Newhouse? Was that
Looks like Doug.
Looks like Doug and Tom. So Doug first.
Felicia, can we consider not next year doing this for multiple years? Do we have to do it every year? I mean, we did the represented for 5 years. Why go through this every year? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah. No, we can do it multiple years. There wouldn't be any downside to that. I don't think the district has to post the increases to, or the salaries increases or decreases or whatever they are, to the website, and submit them also to the state controller's office. The resolution process maybe is kind of a trigger for that, but we can find other triggers for that. If the board is interested in the 2-year process, we can certainly make that happen.
Tom?
I notice on Exhibit B, and then in the resolution, it talks about the salary schedule, and then it talks about the pay period. And we have 26 pay periods a year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Not 24, 26.
26.
So what do? You multiply the salaries times 12 and then divide it by 26?
Yes.
All right.
To get the
I think
to get the biweekly payroll. Yeah.
Okay. In the resolution, I think Exhibit B contains the monthly salary schedule, and you should put it on. It should say monthly, because I was having trouble figuring it out. Add the word monthly.
That's funny that you think. It's funny that you say that, because I was thinking the exact same thing today, just before the meeting. I thought, why do we have the monthly salary in there? Why don't we have the biweekly salary? I noticed that CMSA posts their salaries in biweekly. We do make a notice. It might not be so easy to see, but in the Exhibit B of the salary schedule, you'll see under the row that says the range, steps 1 through 6, there is a little word that says monthly. But I think to be consistent.
I don't know. I'd much prefer monthly. I want monthly salaries.
Okay.
Yeah. But just put monthly salary schedule in. Where is it? Does it say that?
It's in the table.
In the table of Exhibit B, Tom.
Under step 3, step 4.
Under step 3, step 4.
Oh, okay. God, right in plain sight.
There it is.
Not great table design, but
it's not.
Put it in the title.
I'll put it in the title.
And it needs to go in the resolution right at the last line, I think.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
So, do I hear a motion, if it's appropriate, with that change to the resolution in the last line?
I'd move to approve resolution number 20-1588, approving salary and benefit schedules for unrepresented employees of the district.
Second.
With that modification.
Wait, I have a clarification. Yes. What was added to it?
Just the monthly, noting what Tom was talking about with the monthly. Just
in the header.
It's a clarification.
This will be an annual?
This year.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, Mary has seconded, and Julia, please.
Gaffney?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Meggs?
Yes.
Scylla?
Yes.
Borstein?
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 11, review and determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted in resolution number 20-1586 for the 31 Ellsworth easement pipeline slide repair in Oak Manor.
Yes, board, we've made some progress on this. Today met with a potential contractor, and reminded, how this process is really well suited to this situation. We really need to get this work done before the wet season. And it's not a slam dunk process to just get someone who's qualified lined up, who's willing to bid. We reached out to 4 contractors we think could do a good job in this sensitive environment, and 1 respectfully declined, and we haven't heard from 2, but we did hear from 1 that does really good environmental work, and they seem to be interested. So they pointed out some technical issues that make a lot of sense, and I don't know if we completely anticipated, which is when you do the seeding, when you're trying to get native vegetation going, it's really better to wait and do that until soon before the wet season, like around September, and then do the erosion control blankets at that time. And so that was some good insight from the contractor who has success. An example of their work is the restoration of the Muir Beach, where Redwood Creek goes into the ocean. They're the contractor that built that ecological restoration that you may have gone to, the new bridge that's there, and all of the willows and the coho salmon habitat. So this is the contractor who's interested in doing this work. So that's good news. We hope that they do submit a bid, and maybe we'll get bids from others, but that's where we're at this point. And I do recommend we continue the emergency.
Board, any questions? And we have no public, so can we entertain a motion, please?
I move that we determine a need to continue the emergency action associated with the slide repair to protect a pipeline along a sewer easement access trail on 31 Ellsworth Lane in Oak Manor, unincorporated Fairfax.
Second.
Pam seconded. So, Julia?
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Meggs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein,
Yes.
unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we can be done with Fairfax and now start paying attention to Laurel Grove. I'm just kidding. Item 12, review and determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted in resolution number 20-1581, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing expenditures related to the novel coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19.
Good. Similar to last item, this emergency situation continues. I don't really have any set updates in mind outside of just implementation of the COVID. I guess one anecdote I could share is, you might remember from the last board meeting, we were estimating our COVID related costs about around $80,000 or so. It may be more now. We did get a change order request from the Larkspur Landing contractor related to COVID expenditures, because when they bid the project in May 2019, they didn't have COVID expenses anticipated. So you might be interested to know what that came out to. It was a proposed change order of $11,000. What cost them $11,000? Well, they actually had to put a job trailer out on the site that was larger, so that they had enough distancing between the same number of staff that are out there compared to last year, just as an example. So there's different things that they're expenses they're incurring, and so they did a detailed accounting, and we're going to turn around and use that detailed accounting and add it to our tally of COVID-related expenses to the district that we'll provide to get reimbursed through the FEMA process. So the emergency does continue. We are piling up expenses. Any other comments, Felicia?
Hi, sorry about that. I was muted. No, just that, like you were saying, we are tracking these expenses, and that Cal OES is expecting a submittal of our accounting of these expenses at the end of August or early September. It's a long process. You know, they're giving us and all of the agencies an extended period of time to put together the application, and I suspect there'll be a long period of time where they'll be reviewing applications and making determinations for reimbursements as well. So not that that is directly related to the emergency declaration, but just as additional information.
Yeah, that's right. And the board's aware, we did put together a COVID exposure control plan in early April, and we've made some changes to that. Stephen Mixis is responsible for part of that, you know, and in terms of the ongoing coordination with staff. And we've incorporated that into our regular safety committee meetings. And so we get input from staff on how things are going and share any updates to the county health orders and that sort of thing. Any comments, Stephen?
Actually, everything's calming down considerably in the last 2-3 weeks, and we've received many compliments from Raphael sent to management on you know, just how well he thinks we did. I've received many verbal comments from other supervisors, collection system workers, inspectors, and there's a lot of appreciation. I want to thank the general manager, Felicia, and the board. Thank you.
And thanks to you, you know, for keeping an eye on things. You know, we're trying to keep taking it seriously. You know, I shared an anecdote with staff that our local branch office of Bank of Marin in Sausalito had a COVID case, and then several. There was a little spreader event right there in the community where I live, you know, and so they closed the branch a couple weeks ago. So we need to be vigilant. We need to implement the plan and take it seriously, because the threat hasn't really dissipated. And so I think folks are doing that. And we have these sporty face masks.
Would there be any problem with putting this continuing emergency declaration on the consent calendar, Andrea?
Technically not, although I think it's useful for the board to have a conversation each month about what's happening and why the continuing emergency is necessary. The statute has language about, you know, the default should be to end the emergency as soon as you can. So I think as long as it's continued, I think it's helpful to have the minutes reflect that there was conversation and what that conversation was.
I guess maybe it's just because we had 2 meetings this month. I was like,
yeah.
Are we going to declare COVID-19 over? I don't think so.
Mary, I'd say that since the consent calendar specifically says matters under this item are considered routine, I don't think any emergency could be considered routine.
Let me just ask a quick question, Felicia and Steve. I know that some modicum of work went to Albert at the Anderson Drive property to change the original drawings to accommodate COVID-19 changes. Is that something we can track and put it into this, and maybe we can be reimbursed for part of Albert's work to accommodate this emergency and perhaps other ones in the future?
I think that's a great idea. Let's see, am I on mute again? No, I'm not. Good. think that's a great idea, and we can certainly quantify that and capture it and submit those expenses from the architectural firm.
Great. Okay. Motion, anybody? Hello, anybody have a
I
motion?
move we determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted in Resolution 2015-81, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing expenditures related to the novel coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Julia?
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
He said yes.
Yeah, I'll say yes again.
thank you. Megs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, thank you.
Item 13A, and this is the operations and maintenance. And just before we start, I'd just like to point out that as far as the recycled water goes, that a very important point has been reached in the amount of recycled water that we've done, and Steve will talk about it, but we have used the equivalent of a Olympic-sized swimming pool in recycled water. So,
President Borstein,
yes.
President Borstein, I apologize. I believe when we approved the agenda, we were going to discuss the immediate action item after item 12.
Thank you. And then I'll get to say it again about the recycled water.
Yes, happy to hear it then.
Olympic-sized swimming pool, I'm just saying. Okay. Emergency item. So Steve sent out a thing here. Hang on. Let me read it. Hang on. I apologize. Let's see. General
The
Moore.
link to the document is also in the chat of this meeting if anyone is having trouble pulling up the PDF.
So let me read what Julia sent to us. General Manager Moore drafted a letter today in response to CSDA's urgent request to respond to a concerning budget trailer bill proposal using suggested language provided by the Santa Clara Valley Water District, Valley Water. It is time sensitive to send immediately and will be proposed to be added to tonight's agenda. This item came to staff's attention after the board packet was posted and distributed. Steve.
Yeah, this is just as being a member of CSDA, they give us the service of reviewing potential legislation or other decisions that can impact special districts' financial standing and give folks the heads up. And it's effective when a number of agencies weigh in, and it's not just not just advocacy from the organization, but also specific agencies weighing in about their concern. So we've been requested to sign on to this letter that was provided. We didn't make any modifications, other than I did note that special districts include sewer districts. Our special district association doesn't always highlight that we provide sewer services, so that's always worth inserting. But with that, I don't know enough about how the ERAF process works myself. I think Director Gaffney and Felicia know a lot more than I do. And so I consulted with them yesterday when I got this appeal to do this letter this week, because the budget process moves quickly in June, and there's a budget trailer bill under consideration now, and time is of the essence if we're going to provide input. it does feel a little bit like that the state, the impression you get is that they're looking for any and all ways to move property tax around to address certain needs that are real. But would that have unintended consequences of disrupting other essential services? And we sense that might be the case here with the way funds could be redirected for whatever laudable purpose. It could adversely affect those whose funds are taken away.
Well, isn't it worse than that? Isn't it that they're going to make us maybe reimburse them for previous funds received?
Well, that's right. I read that too. That's notwithstanding going forward, they're actually looking at some punitive measures potentially as a way to claw back resources from local government, and that just doesn't seem appropriate. And it seems that their methodologies and by which they're coming to conclusions are under debate, so that really they aren't at a place where they can really say they have the last word with buy-in to how they are doing the calculations. There is some difference of opinion among experts on how these calculations are made. So it just seems a little bit premature to make such a decision at the state level, notwithstanding the emergencies, and the COVID-related economic impacts. We want to caution against, reactive action.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Since it's going right to Gavin Newsom, should we point out that he got a lateral grant loan when he was living here in Kent Woodlands? Oh, no. Okay.
You can retroactively pull it. Well, I move we send the letter.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, not sure who did, but Julia figured it out. Okay, Julia.
Yes, I have the motion and second as Gaffney and Scylla. So Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Megs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Cool, and I get to do this again. 13A. By the way, just in case anybody didn't notice about the recycled water, we used enough recycled water, non-potable, from CMSA to fill, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, which is huge. Okay.
That's right. Oh, yeah, I gave Director Borstein that tidbit because 88,000 gallons. If you're interested.
Not that you would want to swim in an Olympic-sized swimming pool filled with recycled water.
Yeah, because it actually would have more chlorine than the Mill Valley Community Center.
Which reminds me, did we get I know that we have a sign up, or we did, by the creek near my house saying that there was a spill, which was the lateral, Michael told me, over by the Woodlands Market.
Yes, I'd be more than happy to add for that, Steve.
Sure.
So we had a backup at 17 College Court. It was in a 12-inch. We're still in the process of investigating it. There was a Category 1 spill this month, and basically we're working with Marin County Environmental Health. They're the ones that tell us when we can take down a sign, put up a sign. But we took hopefully the final samples today. Rafael and I were out there, and should be good to go. And then we'll do a failure analysis and present that to Steve next week.
And then how did that interact with, did we get CMSA to test the Corte Madera Creek and see if we can go out and swim in it?
Absolutely. Mark at CMSA was wonderful to work with. Their laboratory and everything is working very cohesively, and it's a new day.
Do we know if we can swim in it for my master swimmers friends?
Yes, you're good.
I thought that sign meant that that test did not go well at first.
Basically, that's always as a precaution. It generally takes anywhere from 48 hours to 3 days, 4 days to get the test samples back. Again, we work with Marin County Environmental Health, and they let us know when we can take the signs down because it is a recreational area in Corte Madera Creek, and that's where we took the samples. So everything looks free and clear. We'll have a positive from CMSA hopefully by Monday after they test the samples.
Yeah, so that event happened this month, so it's not captured in this report. It'll be in the next monthly report.
Correct.
Okay, Doug Kelly.
Can we have in the next agenda or the one after that, whenever it's ready, some sort of a report on the study done on Corte Madera Creek so that we could forward back a formal response to the Friends of Corte Madera Creek and have this on the record?
I'd be more than happy. It's all public information, and I'll work with Steve, but correct.
Great.
Okay, well, that's it for tonight's agenda.
Wait, Michael.
Okay,
I want to give a compliment to one of the guys. I think it's Rich, younger guy, new employee, a couple years. Mixes, you probably know who I'm talking about because Stephen took a. But I got to experience, what's the truck call that came up here? The one with
Probably a Ramjet. He's on maintenance.
Yeah. So they pulled off the manhole, and I got to see him take the hose. I got to look down the manhole.
Oh, that's cool.
And learn about the trap that pulls the tree roots out. And he did this great education thing. So he was awesome, polite,
Thank you.
and they were doing this all over the street, and I'd never seen it before. So it was very cool.
It's my pleasure to let him know tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Yeah, Rick Smith. Hey, would you all be interested? I learned how to share my screen. I just got some pictures of wipes in manholes and pump stations. You want to see any?
Sure.
Yeah?
Why not?
You want to see look inside a manhole? Yeah. I got one right here. This one was when a soft blockage got dislodged. Because I got these because I'm giving a talk. CWA and CASA said, Steve, tell us about the wipes thing and, and your commercials and all that. And I said, okay. So I got some pictures from staff. So this one here is, let's see here. Sorry. This is a manhole downstream of when a line maintenance dislodged a soft blockage. Wait, it's not coming up.
It's a very close up of the tissue.
Oh, you saw that. Okay. And then here's what the bar screen looks like with wipes after. See
That's
that?
Switzerland.
Yeah, that's my desktop. That's not. See, I'm still getting better at this. I was trying to do full screen. See. Oh, full screen doesn't really work, does it? Yeah. Okay. So it's doing something funny. Sorry about that. But this I got this picture. This is a picture of. I'll just do this. That's 1 week of accumulation of wipes and rags and paper towels at pump station 15. And it's a little bit higher than when we've shut down the station for a week. We shut down for maintenance purposes. So this was 12 buckets. Staff says we might typically collect 9 or 10 buckets off of the racks. So actually, this is the best scientific information we have, but it suggests we're a little bit higher accumulation of wipes and paper towels than we saw before the pandemic. So on the one hand, I was saying, it's not that bad or it's not worse. I think it's just a little worse. So there's another example there. And then I was looking at pictures here. I'll pull up that manhole and then we'll call it a day.
Sometimes they find money in those things too, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, so this was the case, and so in this picture, it's not lovely, but that brown stuff is actually paper. You know, that's paper towels and wipes and that sort of thing. It just gets the dirty color from ambient, and that came out of a lateral that was clogged. You know, that eventually, that was near where a lateral comes in. So the lateral was really contributing a lot. So I think, you know, the issue with wipes and paper towels, that sort of thing, is kind of localized. You know, certain residences or apartment buildings are still maybe sources, but overall slightly higher levels. So that, you know, that's a little maybe too much information for you, but I thought I'd give you a flavor for some of the information.
Steve, in the specs, it said that you're going to do away with the ladders down into the manholes because they're not necessary anymore. So what does that mean? Or is that because we can stick a camera down instead of having somebody crawl down?
Basically, any kind of ladder form, you have to use confined space. So ladders should be removed. They do help the operator, but in case anything happens, our term in construction is, we call them jawbreakers. So you want to have a flush against the side of the wall, so your manhole, your entry into the manhole is as safe as possible. So
you don't need to climb down like that.
You do not want that, because in case anything happens, they're extremely dangerous, and I have experienced several scenarios where close calls.
Yeah, so now we're lowered in, right? There's a harness. Yeah,
yes.
And there's a new procedure for getting, if we have to get down there, which is rare.
Much safer, yes.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Right, but when we pull those things out, we need to seal it properly. You know, that was part of the specification. There's a right way and a wrong way. Do it wrong, it corrodes, and it actually will cause structural degradation.
Right.
Oh, I also want to add that Rick loves that truck. Loves that truck.
I will make sure he knows first thing in the morning. And I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Steps on it, it goes. So very happy with the truck.
Okay, can I indulge? Can I indulge for about 2 minutes? Julia, can I indulge for a second? Oh, go ahead.
Can I say one more thing, Michael? I just want to say thank you, Steve, for forwarding that email from Raphael. You know, having been on the board when a lot of the staff was really, really, really unhappy and thought that the management was not supportive and responsive. That just gave, like, you know, that set up a whole set of endorphins for me of like, wow, have we made big changes? So, I mean, kudos to you guys, Steve and Felicia and the staff for doing it. But also, you know, this board has seen, most of us on this board anyway, have seen a huge sea change in the way the line staff perceive management.
Thank you very much.
Julia, can I have 1 minute and share my screen for a second? Having to do with wipes, clogged pipes.
What did I start?
Oh.
Actually, while you're getting that up, Michael, I have you sent me a photo of a family looking at one of the posters, and I'm going to use that in my talk.
Yeah, good.
Somehow Julia got booted off.
Uh-oh. Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, there you are, Julia.
And the system says that if she, oh, there you are. She's back.
Can I share my screen for 1 second? Hopefully this works. There we go. So as you know, I spent a lot of time on my bicycle riding around. And so at my time and my expense, I designed this Ross Valley Sanitary District moving billboard when I'm riding along on those things. And so it's wipes clogged pipes. It says keeping it flowing since 1899.
If you want to sue him for trademark infringement, I know his address.
Public domain.
How much do these cost, Michael?
Huh?
$99?
No. If anybody wanted to order, and I'll make it available. It's $79 it's an incredible jersey. It's the one that I rode in Africa, and it's the most comfortable jersey I've ever ridden in. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's it.
You know, Las
And who
Colinas has a
doesn't-
band. We could just have a cycling team,
Yeah.
right? Is it Las Colinas?
Yeah, but it actually has nothing to do. They just named that because they wanted to be called the sewer band. It actually has nothing to do with Las Colinas sewer district.
I heard that they all live in the district, so it was something they all had in common was there. Well, we're all within this sewer district.
Maybe. I think they just thought it was a fun name.
Sewers are fun. What can you say?
Yeah. Okay, so if there's nothing else, let's adjourn this meeting until I think July 15th is the date.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great
Thank
evening.
you all.